The flashing blue and red lights exploded in my rearview mirror like a grenade, shattering the fragile piece I'd clung to for the last 100 miles. Rain hammered the windshield of my beat-up Ford pickup, turning the empty stretch of I-80 into a blurred watercolor of despair, and I knew in that gut-twisting instant that this was it, the universe's cruel joke finally catching up to me. But when the cop rapped his knuckles on the glass and leaned in, his flashlight carving shadows across a face I hadn't seen in 15 years, his voice sliced through the storm like a lifeline. "James, Jesus Christ, it's you. Pull over safe, man, we gotta talk." I killed the engine, my hands trembling as they fumbled with the keys. The weight of Chicago's skyline long faded in the dark behind me. The wipers slapped one last defiant rhythm before I switched them off, and the world outside dissolved into sheets of water that muffled everything but my ragged breathing. William Hargrove. Billy to the kids we'd been back in that godforsaken high school locker room in Omaha, stood there under the brim of his trooper hat, rain beating on his broad shoulders like he'd been forged from the storm itself. His eyes, those same hazel eyes that had once locked onto mine across a football field, held no accusation, only a flicker of something raw and unguarded that made my chest ache. "Get out," he said, not an order but a plea, his voice low enough to cut under the thunder rumbling in the distance. I obeyed, stepping into the downpour because what choice did I have? The cold hit like a slap, soaking my flannel shirt in seconds, but it was nothing compared to the chill of recognition settling between us. We hadn't spoken since graduation night, when I'd bolted from that cramped motel room on the edge of town, leaving him tangled in sheets and confusion, my cowardice a ghost that had haunted me ever since. Now here he was, badge gleaming faintly under the cruiser's lights, and me, James Riley, 33 and unraveling, with a duffel bag of regrets in the passenger seat and a one-way ticket to nowhere. He didn't cuff me or demand papers. Instead, he jerked his head toward his cruiser, the door already cracked open against the wind. "In. Now, you're gonna freeze out here." I slid into the passenger seat, the vinyl creaking under me, smelling of coffee and gun oil and that faint, clean soap scent that was all Billy. William now, I supposed, with his squared jaw and the lines etched around his mouth from years of swallowing hard truths. He climbed in after, slamming the door, and the cab felt too small, the air thick with unsaid words. The radio crackled faintly, some dispatcher droning about a pileup near Lincoln, but he muted it with a flick of his wrist. "What the hell are you doing out here at this hour?" he asked, turning to face me fully, his knee brushing mine in the confined space. Up close, the years had been kind to him, stronger, surer, the boyish mop of brown hair now cropped short under his hat. But there was a weariness in his gaze, like he'd carried the weight of Nebraska's endless plains on his back. "Driving?" I muttered, staring at my boots dripping puddles on the floor mat. Away from everything. It was the truth, stripped bare, but saying it aloud made it real. 48 hours ago, I'd walked in on my fiancé, ex-fiancé now, tangled up with some suit from his office, their laughter echoing off the exposed brick walls of our Wicker Park loft like shards of glass in my ears. But it wasn't the cheating that gutted me. It was the voicemail he'd left an hour later, cool as ice. "Tell Mom and Dad the truth, James, or I will. You owe me that much." Betrayal didn't come sweeter than outing me to my conservative folks back in Omaha, the ones who'd prayed away my phase in high school with Bible studies and boot camp summers. William's hand landed on my shoulder, firm but not forceful, grounding me like an anchor in the chop. "From Chicago? Alone? You look like hell, buddy." His thumb grazed my collarbone through the wet fabric, a touch so casual it might have been brotherly, but we both knew better. Back then, in the stolen moments behind the bleachers or in his daddy's old barn, we'd been each other's secret salvation. Two scared kids fumbling toward something we couldn't name in a town that would have burned us at the stake for it. I'd loved him fierce and foolish, until fear won out and I ran to the big city lights, chasing a life where I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. I shrugged off his hand, not because I wanted to, but because the proximity was unraveling me. Just needed to clear my head. "What's it to you, Officer Hargrove? You gonna write me up for bad decisions?" He chuckled, low and rough, but it didn't reach his eyes. "First off, it's will now. And second, if I was gonna ticket you, it'd be for that rust bucket you call a truck. Thing's a hazard." He paused, his gaze dropping to the faint scar on my knuckles. The one from that fight with my brother after Dad's funeral last year. But nah. I saw your plate, Illinois, old high school sticker still peeling off the bumper. Figured it might be you. Been a long time, James. Too long, I whispered, the words slipping out before I could cage them. The rain drummed on the roof like impatient fingers, and for a heartbeat, the cab felt suspended. Just us two against the world's indifferent roar. Then his radio squawked again, pulling him back, and he sighed, rubbing a hand over his stubbled jaw. Look, my shift ends in 20. There's a diner off the next exit, Edna's. Greasy spoons and bottomless coffee. Meet me there? We can. Catch up. It wasn't a question. Not really. But the hope threading his voice hooked into me deeper than any command. I nodded, throat tight. Yeah, okay. He dropped me back at my truck with a flashlight to guide my way, his silhouette lingering in the rearview as I peeled out, the cruiser's lights fading like a promise I wasn't sure I deserved. Edna's was a relic straight out of a Springsteen song. Neon sign flickering open 24/7 in red cursive. Gravel lot pocked with semis and locals nursing hangovers over hash browns. I pulled in at 12:45, the bell above the door jingling like a warning as I shook off the rain and claimed a booth by the window. The place smelled of bacon grease and stale cigarette smoke clinging to the vinyl seats. A jukebox in the corner crooning some Patsy Cline ballad about walking after midnight. I ordered black coffee, strong enough to strip paint, and nursed it while staring at the highway, headlights slicing through the dark like unanswered questions. He arrived 10 minutes later, hat tucked under his arm. Uniform jacket unzipped over a thermal that hugged his frame in ways that stirred memories I'd buried deep. He slid into the booth opposite me, waving off the waitress with a "just coffee for me, darlin'." She poured it steaming, her eyes lingering on us with that small-town curiosity that could curdle milk. "So," he started, wrapping his hands around the mug like it was a lifeline. "Married? Kids?" The whole white picket fence. I barked a laugh that tasted bitter. "Close. Engaged, actually. Was." The word hung there, heavy, and I watched his face for the flinch, the judgment. But it never came. Instead, his brow furrowed, concern etching deeper lines. What happened? Caught him with his assistant. Then he decided to play scorched earth. Threatened to tell my family everything unless I handed over the apartment keys quiet-like. I traced the rim of my cup, the ceramic warm against my chilled fingers. Family's old-school Catholic. Dad's gone now, but Mom, she'd disown me faster than you can say exorcism. And my brother? He'd probably show up with a shotgun. William's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking under the skin. That's bullshit. You don't deserve that. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. A spark that jumped like live wire. Remember senior year? After the prom? You said we'd get out, go to New York or San Fran. Live like kings. I remember. How could I not? That night, under a sky full of stars that felt bigger than our small world. We danced in the grass behind his truck, his hands on my waist, whispering dreams that tasted like freedom. But morning came, and so did reality. Recruiters sniffing around for football scholarships, parents with plans that didn't include deviancy. I'd chosen escape, enrolling at some state school in Illinois on a partial ride, leaving him to enlist in the State Patrol Academy like his old man. "And you?" I asked, flipping the script because vulnerability was a two-way street I wasn't ready to cross alone. "Wife? Dog named Buster? The American dream in uniform." He snorted, taking a sip that burned his tongue. He winced, setting it down. "Divorced 3 years back. Sarah was high school sweetheart post-me phase. Good woman, but we were both pretending." His eyes met mine, steady and searching. "Turns out, small towns don't change. They just grind you down slower." The confession landed soft, but it cracked something open in me. A fissure where light seeped in, warm and unexpected. We talked then, really talked, for hours that blurred into the witching hour. About the deployments he'd done with the Guard, patrolling dust-choked roads in the Middle East that made Nebraska flatlands look like paradise. About my graphic design gig in the city, scraping by on freelance until the fiancé, Mark, his name was Mark, swept in with promises of stability and a ring that felt like a noose. Laughter crept in too, ragged at first, over stories of Coach Ramirez's infamous motivational speeches involving laxatives in the Gatorade cooler. By 2 a.m., the diner was empty save for us and a trucker dozing in the corner, and the waitress had refilled our cups so many times the pot ran dry. William's knee pressed against mine under the table, a deliberate anchor, and when he finally said, "Crash at my place tonight. It's 10 miles off the interstate. Guest room's yours," I didn't argue. The alternative was another night in the truck, chasing horizons that led nowhere. His cabin was tucked into a stand of cottonwoods off a county road, the kind of place that screamed, bachelor cop with a hero complex. Log walls, a stone fireplace stacked with unread paperbacks, and a kitchen that saw more takeout than home cooking. He tossed me a towel and a spare set of sweats that hung loose on my frame but smelled like him, pine and leather. I showered quick, the hot water sluicing away the road grime, but not the knot in my gut. When I emerged, he was at the stove, scrambling eggs with the focus of a man defusing a bomb. "Eat," he commanded, plating it with toast that was more charred than golden. We sat at the scarred oak table, forks scraping in companionable silence, until he broke it. "You planning to keep running?" I pushed eggs around my plate, appetite fleeing. "What else is there? Go back? Face the fallout? Mom hanging up the phone? Brother calling me every name in the book? Mark's already poisoned the well. Sent screenshots of my Grindr profile to my email, like some twisted trophy." William's fork clattered down. "Grindr? Shit, James. Not judgment, just surprise, laced with something that might have been hurt." "Not like that." I rushed, heat crawling up my neck. "Just curiosity. Boredom." Mark hated anything that reminded him we weren't normal. I air-quoted the word, the one that had poisoned so many conversations. He leaned back, chair creaking, and studied me like I was a suspect with an airtight alibi. "Normal's overrated. Look at me. 34, living like a monk in the woods, pulling over speeders to feel useful." A ghost of a smile tugged his lips. "But I never forgot you. That summer after you left, I drove to Chicago once, sat outside your dorm for hours like a damn stalker, chickened out at the door." The admission hit like a rogue wave, stealing my breath. "Why didn't you say something?" "Fear," he said simply, echoing my own ghost. "Same as you." We cleared the dishes in tandem, shoulders brushing in the narrow space, and when he turned to dry the last plate, his hand caught mine under the suds, deliberate, lingering. Time stretched, the cabin's quiet amplifying the thud of my pulse. "James," he murmured, voice gravel rough. "Stay, just for dawn. See what the light looks like here." I did. In the guest room with its lumpy mattress and window framing the moonlit trees. Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with rain and red lights, and his hand on my shoulder. Dawn crept in gray and reluctant, coffee brewing downstairs like a siren's call. But as I dressed, phone buzzing on the nightstand shattered the fragile truce. Mark's name flashing, a text that read, "Found your little secret road trip. Come home or I mail the pics to Father O'Malley." Your call. Panic surged, hot and familiar. I bolted downstairs, William already lacing boots by the door, thermos in hand for his shift. "I gotta go," I blurted, grabbing keys from the counter. "Family emergency." "Bullshit." But his face shuddered, that cop mask sliding into place. "Need backup?" "No." "Yes." "Hell, I don't know." The lie tasted foul. This was my mess, not his to clean. He nodded once, sharp. "You got my number. Use it." And then he was gone, cruiser crunching gravel down the drive, leaving me with eggs congealing on the stove and a heart-pounding betrayal's rhythm. I hit the road again, eastbound this time, the plains unfolding like an accusation. Mark's texts escalated, pathetic, running like a bitch, each one a barb sinking deeper. By noon, I was back in Chicago's snarl, the loop's horns and exhaust a toxic welcome. Our loft, his loft now, loomed on Division Street, the bay window mocking me with its view of the L tracks. I buzzed up, stealing for war, but the door swung open to emptiness. Furniture askew, my clothes in trash bags by the curb like yesterday's garbage. A note on the counter in his precise architect's script. "Keys on the hook. Change the locks if you want, but don't come crying when the priest calls." Below it, Printed photos. Me at a pride rally 2 years back. Arm around a drag queen I'd met once. Laughing under rainbow flags. Harmless, but in his hands, ammunition. Rage boiled over. I swept the note into the sink. Lit it with the stove's pilot. Watching blue flames curl the edges. But fire couldn't burn the fear coiling in my belly. I crashed on a friend's couch in Logan Square that night. A burly bartender named Rico who'd heard the sob story over shots of tequila. "Dump the asshole," he slurred, clapping my back. "World's full of better ones." But sleep evaded me, the ceiling fan whirring like William's unanswered questions. Days blurred into a haze. Job interviews ghosting. Mom's voicemail stiff with unspoken worry. Heard from Mark, "You're taking a break. Call me James." And Mark's silence louder than screams. I drove aimlessly one evening, ending up at the lakefront. Waves lapping Navy Pier's pilings under a bruised sunset. That's when my phone rang, unknown Nebraska number. "James? It's Will. Been thinking." His voice was steady, but underneath, a current of urgency. "That emergency? Spill it. I'm off in 2 hours. Can be in the city by midnight if you need me." I hesitated, the wind whipping off the water carrying echoes of our diner booth. "It's bad, man. Real bad." "Then let me help carry it." Against every instinct screaming run, I gave him the address. Hours later, his unmarked SUV pulled up outside Rico's dive bar. Headlights cutting the fog rolling off the Chicago River. He stepped out in civvies. Jeans faded at the knees, flannel over a thermal that did nothing to hide the breadth of him. And for a second, I forgot to breathe. He scanned the crowd spilling onto the sidewalk, zeroing in on me like a beacon, and pulled me into a hug that smelled of highway miles and home. "Talk," he said simply, steering me to a quiet corner booth away from the jukebox's thump. So I did, unloading the betrayal in halting bursts, the photos, the threats, the way Mark had twisted our 6 years into a weapon. William listened without interrupting, his hand a steady weight on the table, knuckles white when I got to the family angle. "That's not love," he growled finally. "That's control. You press charges." "For what?" "Being a dick." I laughed, hollow. "Nah, just wanna forget." His eyes darkened, stormy as the lake outside. "Forgetting's a lie we tell ourselves. Remember the barn? That night with the hay bales and your old man's whiskey? You said, 'One day we'll own this fear.'" "I was drunk," I muttered, but the memory flooded back. His lips on mine, tentative then fierce, the world narrowing to the heat between us. "And right." He leaned in, voice dropping to a murmur that raised gooseflesh on my arms. "I'm all in, James, if you'll let me." The offer hung there, electric, and before I could second guess, I closed the distance, our mouths meeting soft and searching, tasting of beer and possibility. It wasn't fireworks. It was hearth fire, steady and warm, chasing shadows from corners I'd forgotten existed. We tumbled into his rented room at a no-tell motel off Lake Shore Drive that night. Not for passion's sake but for solace. Bodies curling together under threadbare sheets. His heartbeat a lullaby against my ear. Morning brought takeout pancakes and plans sketched on napkins. "Crash with me in Omaha till you sort the job hunt. My mom, loves strays. She'd adopt you in a heartbeat." It sounded like madness, this leap across state lines on trust alone. But Mark's final text that afternoon, "Enjoy your cop fantasy. Hope he likes sloppy seconds," sealed it. Betrayal's last gasp. Petty and poisoned, but it ignited something fierce in me. I blocked him, packed the duffel tighter, and by dusk, we were westbound, Chicago's glow shrinking in the mirrors. The drive was therapy on wheels, William's playlist heavy on Dylan and Cash, stories swapping like mile markers. He confessed the divorce's rot. Sarah sensing his distance, the fights over kids we both knew wouldn't come, the relief in signing papers under fluorescent lights. "Thought I'd die alone," he admitted, hand laced with mine over the console. "Then your truck's taillights on radar, and bam, fate's got a sense of humor." Omaha welcomed us with open arms and overcast skies, his cabin a sanctuary I'd mythologized. His mom, Evelyn, was a wiry widow with laugh lines and a smoker's rasp, greeting me with bear hug and meatloaf that could feed a precinct. "Willie's told me stories," she winked, pouring wine that loosened tongues. About a boy who broke his heart and might just fix it. Evenings settled into rhythm. Me sketching logos on his laptop by the fire, him poring over case files with that furrowed focus, our glances lingering longer each time. But cracks spiderwebbed in. My phone silent from family, the job search yielding crickets, and one night, a nightmare jerking me awake. Mark's face morphing into my brother's, accusing. William held me through it, whispers in the dark. You're enough. Here. Now. But dawn brought reality's bite. A call from my mom, voice quavering. James? Father O'Malley's been asking questions. Mark. He sent letters. Come home, son. We can pray this away. The word pray landed like a slap, old wounds reopening. I hung up, fists clenched, and stormed out into the chill, boots crunching frost-killed grass. William found me by the woodpile, axe in hand, splitting logs with fury that splintered more than pine. Talk to me, he urged, resting the handle gentle but firm. It's poison, I snarled, tears hot on my cheeks. They'll never see me, us, like this. And you? Dragging you into my shitshow. He cupped my face, thumbs swiping salt tracks. I'm not dragged. I'm choosing. Then softer. Love's not a solo road, James. It's the detours that make it real. We made love then, slow and reverent on the cabin floor, rugs bunching under us. Not the frantic release of youth, but a claiming, deep as roots. Afterward, tangled and sated, he traced the scar on my knuckles. Call her back. Tell your truth. I'll be right here. Emboldened. I did. Dialing Mom from the porch swing, William's hand warm on my knee. Ma, it's me. All of me. The words tumbled. The engagement's lie, Mark's cruelty, the man beside me who'd pulled me from the ditch. Silence stretched, agonizing, then a sob hers, cracking open. Oh, Jimmy, we've been so scared. For you. Come for Christmas? Bring him. We'll try. It wasn't absolution, but it was start, a bridge over the chasm. Words spread slow. My brother grunted non-committal over beer in a video call, but Evelyn's meatloaf diplomacy worked wonders, inviting them for a pre-holiday barbecue that thawed ice caps. Climax brewed unexpected, though. A stormy November eve, rain lashing the cabin like furies unleashed. I'd landed freelance work, remote designs for a Omaha ad firm, life stitching into normalcy. William was late from shift, unusual, his texts curt. Stuck in traffic. Love you, Mark. Here, on our doorstep, face twisted in the dash lights, William's cruiser idling behind like a sentinel. Heart slamming, I flung open the door, rain stinging as I stepped out. What the fuck are you doing? He killed the engine, emerging in a trench coat too pristine for Nebraska mud. Eyes wild. You think you can ghost me? After everything. Venom dripped, but underneath, desperation. A man unraveling his own facade. William flanked him silent, hand hovering near his holster. Not drawn, but ready. Mr. Riley called it in as trespass. Best you state your business, sir. Mark laughed, brittle. Business? Tell your badge boy here about the loans, James. The ones I co-signed for your art school dreams. Or the friends I kept quiet when you flirted at parties. He thrust an envelope, sodden now. Divorce papers? Blackmail? Sign and we're square. Walk away clean. Betrayal's echo but hollow this time. I snatched it, ripping through, confetti scattering in the gale. We're done, Mark. Have been since you chose spite over us. Lightning cracked, illuminating his crumple. Defeat etching deep. William stepped forward, voice steel. Leave, now, or I make this official. Mark backed away, eyes darting between us, then fled to his car, taillights vanishing into the tempest. The storm broke then, not with fury but release. William pulling me close on the porch, rain mingling with tears, our breaths sinking in the chaos. You okay? He murmured, lips to my temple. Better, I whispered, clinging. Because of you. Winter deepened, Christmas lights twinkling in Omaha's modest neighborhoods. Mom's table groaning under turkey and uneasy truces. My brother clapped William's shoulder awkward. Evelyn's toasts bridging gaps. It wasn't fairy tale. No grand gestures or erased scars. But humanistic, real. Forgiveness earned in increments. Love a quiet rebellion against the world's rough edges. Spring came green and forgiving. The cabin's porch swing creaking under our weight as we watched fireflies dance. Pulled over at midnight. I mused one eve, head on his shoulder. Best ticket I never paid. He chuckled, kissing my crown. Worth every mile. And in that, the course not just changed, but charted true. Two men, scarred but standing, in America's heartland, where storms pass and dawns endure.